So, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming. We are going to talk about what happens after you apply today. We were supposed to have a guest, Julian Morales of Penn State Law, and unfortunately, Julian had to cancel due to inclement weather, so we're going to rebook with him. But tonight, you get me and you get Selene Steelman, and we are going to tell you everything we know about maximizing your chances of getting it off the wait list and just what you can expect. At the end of that, we will take some questions from you. So stay tuned. That's coming at the end. And then finally, I can just show you this. We'll go over why you write a letter of continuing interest, what it is, how to write one, what else you might be able to do. Selene and I will have a discussion about timing of your letters of continued interest and some other finer points about visiting and things like that. Then we'll take your questions in the Q&A, and at the end, we will tell you how to enter the edit giveaway contest because we're giving away one edit once. So stay tuned. Okay, first of all, why do you write a letter of continuing interest? Well, admissions is like a nightmare logic game. You have to put yourself in the admissions officer's point of view. They're trying to put together a class of, say, 300 students, but there are so many contingencies. Once they make their offers and they're looking at their wait list, it might look something like this. We prefer Jill to OCL, but if Jill gets off the wait list at a higher ranked school, she's not going to attend our school probably unless we give her some merit aid. Now, if we let OCL off the wait list, he probably will attend without merit aid. We think, we're not totally sure, knock on wood. And at the same time, we know that some percent of the people who hold their seat, even with a second deposit, aren't going to show up, which is just maddening. We think maybe, I mean, it happened last year. But we're not even sure. Maybe it won't happen this year. So everything is up in the air. And of course, you all took the Lsat. You know that when you have a logic game, you diagram it, right? So this is a sample diagram. Obviously, this is not what admissions officers actually do. But it's, the logic is something like this. By March, you know who's in, you know who's out. You know it's not going to stick, but you do have a great class. You've got a class that's balanced in terms of age and ethnicity and geographic location, and you've hit your medians, and you're just really confident that everyone's going to gel, and you're excited. But then in April, people start getting in off other wait lists. First deposits are due. People withdraw their spots, and it's just a big game of musical chairs. When schools that are sort of above you in the food chain begin to accept people, that means that you lose students, so you accept students, and you probably suck them up from schools that had accepted them below you, and it's just a big mess. And so, May, around deposit time, you might just be face palming yourself, wondering how you're going to fix this, what you're going to do, how you're going to get your balanced class. In July, you figured it out again, and you hope it sticks. And, usually it does, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes even as late as July or August, things change. People don't show up. Now, you can change the calculation subtly. If this is an in-out game, you can add a new condition. You can sort of go from if Margot, or I think we used OCL before, is accepted, change that from might attend to will attend. If M, then A. If M is accepted, then A will attend. Admissions officers are more likely to fill the holes in their class with people they think are going to matriculate. And that is why you send what we call a letter of continuing interest. It is an email, an attachment, a note that tells them that you're interested and that tries to convince them that you're sincere and that you'll really go there. Okay, so how do you write a letter of continuing interest? I'm just going to call them LOCIs from now on. Well, the first step is always to read the instructions. My instructions or read their instructions. They will often tell you how amenable they are to a a sort of YX essay. For example, Chicago says, if you have not already written basically a YX essay, if you have not already written an essay about, why you're interested in attending, you should feel free to do so now. And if they say that you should feel free to, if you want to go there, you basically have to, I think. Anytime you get invited to write a YX essay, you have to, whether it's in the application process or after you submit. Some other schools may have other instructions. There are some schools that may discourage you from sending a longer letter of continued interest. Some schools say you have to fill out this form and then you'll send one. So there are all sorts of different setups out there, and you just have to make sure that you are doing what they tell you to do. Okay, now, assuming that you can write a letter of continued interest, and in most cases you can write at least one, you have to think about a couple things to make it really strong and sincere. First of all, ask yourself what you want to get out of your legal education. Why are you putting yourself through this process in the first place? Then ask yourself what you want to do with your JD. And then the next question is, how is this school going to give you what you're looking for in your education or help you accomplish your goals? If you can explain to them that they are going to help you accomplish your dreams and sound like you mean it, that is going to be a very powerful letter of continuing interest. You should also think about what you have to offer them. You can synthesize your strengths in a sentence or two and add that to your letter of continuing interest. All of this is the why I love you part of the letter of continued interest. Do some research. You should read everything on their website, certainly read their own marketing material, but you should go beyond that. Look down here. That means that you'll scour the internet, you'll chase leads, you'll go down rabbit holes, you'll read about the city on Wikipedia, you'll read about the faculty, you'll look for interviews that they did, you'll see if there's anything on YouTube. Look everywhere, because you never know where you're going to find something that really does get you excited. And if you can find something that gets you excited about the school, you want to tell them that. You should also see this other lesson in our admissions course called How to Research a YX Essay. And we go into a little more depth about where you might look. Okay, next, look into the faculty. Think about who you're going to work with, who you would love to work with. See if there's anyone that you look up to or admire, because again, that can be very powerful to say that. Look into the curriculum. It's great if you mention specific classes that excite you. Even better if those classes are unique to that law school. And then look at everything else: clinics, clubs, journals, programs that are unique to them. For example, Michigan has a summer start program that's appealing to some people. The city, any other opportunities that you might have because of what this law school is, who they have on their faculty, what they offer, and where they are. You want to think about your entire experience, and if nothing else, show them that you have done this work and you're taking it very seriously, because it goes a long way just to sort of show them your calloused hands, so to speak, and prove by virtue of a very well-researched essay that you have done hard work because you want this. Now, you only have one bullet in this chamber, but if there is a school that you will go to if they accept you, I think you should tell them that. I think that is actually the most powerful weapon in your arsenal, because that's ultimately what they're trying to figure out. Is this person a lock if we accept them? I don't think that you should be dishonest, though. So, you don't have to say, you shouldn't say this if you don't mean it. You can just tell other schools, I would be thrilled by an offer of acceptance, without saying I would commit immediately to going there and withdraw all of my other applications. But again, if you can say that, say it. But speaking of which, be sincere. So obviously don't lie. But also, in as much as possible, try to write about things that you mean. I have a theory that admissions officers, after reading so many of these letters, develop an extra sense, a sort of uncanny ability to sniff bullshit from, thousands of miles away, and they'll know if you don't mean it. I believe that about personal statements. I believe that about letters of continuing interest, addenda, everything. I just think that sincerity shines through always, and it's always the most powerful writing. Okay, what else can you do? Well, you don't just have to tell them why you love them. It's also great to send updates. So if you got a new job, if you have a new volunteering position, if new grades came in because of the next semester, or if you have a new LSAT score, you can write. Now they'll see the new LSAT score anyway, but it's a good opportunity to let them know that you've gotten the score and that you're still interested. Of course, if you got a raise or if you got a new award or some other accolade, tell them that, and probably send an updated resume. I always recommend that you highlight what the update is in the body of the email in addition to sending a new resume, so that they don't have to hunt through it and compare and contrast with your old resume. Talk to a student or an alumnus if you can, and work that into your letter of continuing interest. That's often a really good way to show that, again, you've done the research, but also a good way to get excited about the school. Visit if you can. If you can't visit, don't worry. Not everyone can. It's expensive. It's time consuming. People work. So they certainly won't rule you out if you don't visit. But again, if you can, that's a pretty powerful signal of your interest. Before you visit, you can email the admissions office and let them know that you're coming. And you can work that visit into your letter of continuing interest afterward. And Selene and I are going to talk a little bit more about what to do before you visit. Finally, you can send a new letter of recommendation, but I don't recommend sending a recommendation that's similar to your other ones. I think new letters of recommendation are most effective if you can get one that is targeted to the school. Now, I'm not talking about the first round. I'm not talking about when you apply, to your 10 or 20 schools initially, because most people don't send targeted letters of recommendation, and you don't have to. It's not expected. It's fine that you send a general letter. But after you're waitlisted, if you want to send a new letter of recommendation, I would recommend that you get one from somebody who graduated from the school or knows the school, or at least is willing to write about why you would be a good fit for that school in particular. Okay, so let's talk about some of what I just said. And Selene, actually, I'm gonna start with a question for you that I didn't write down here, but can you think offhand of any other updates that people should be sending? Anything jump out at you that I'm missing here?
No, I think you covered them all.
Okay. So next I want to talk about, when is the ideal time to send a letter of continuing interest? And I sort of wrote the cheat sheet here, but I'd love to hear what Selene thinks first.
So I've talked to a number of people about timing, and I've received,
people meaning admissions officers?
Yes, admissions officers, admissions deans, about what they like to see and when. And it's been a mixed bag of feedback that I've received. The underlying consistent thing is that it shouldn't be too long and it should be very sincere. So like, don't, try to slather them with BS.
Do you guys need to take a closer look at this picture? This is the picture of sincerity right here.
I have heard that just one LOCI is enough. They do not want to be inundated with stuff. I have heard that, if they receive something once a month, that they appreciate that contact. I have heard that schools will affirmatively reach out to the candidates themselves, checking in with them, like, what are you thinking about? Where are you leaning towards? What are you?
Yeah, we've already seen that already in this admission cycle with some of our students.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you have with yours, but I have on my side.
And that just might be schools becoming more efficient. It might be schools in certain at a certain tier level where there's just a lot of very strong candidates who have a lot of choices this year, and they're just trying to keep tabs as much as possible so that there aren't big surprises once the first deposit deadline comes about and all of their admitted students have fled to some other place. But I think letters of continued interest, just a quick note, when you get the first notice of, hey, you're on a wait list, I think that that just response email is good. And then maybe starting in like February, you can send the first one. I think, like, if you got put on the wait list in December or January, you acknowledge that you got the email. Thank you very much for reviewing my application. I am still very interested in attending your school. And then you reach out in February, and then you reach out just a little bit before the first deposit deadline for that school to let them know the first deposit's coming along. If I get off the wait list, I am definitely coming.
And Selene, what's the logic on that? Why is the first deposit deadline important?
The first deposit deadline is important because that gives the school a sense of, maybe this school, this cycle, they over admitted. So if they have a class of 200, maybe they admitted, 400, 500 people, expecting that, clearly not all of them are going to accept your offer of admission, but some will accept. And when the first deposit deadline lets them know how many of those initial admissions offers have been accepted, and they'll look at prior histories to see where they should be at that first deposit deadline. And if they're higher or lower, then they'll know whether they have to go to the wait list or not.
So the first deposit deadline happens to be a time where they are going to get more information about their incoming class and potentially turn to the wait list.
Yes, and then start, and then evaluate at that point, how have we used our merit scholarships? Do we have to be more aggressive with scholarship? If they have, fewer deposits than expected, they might ask themselves, well, why is that? What are, our competitor schools maybe slightly above us? What are they doing that we don't have as many people that we expected? Do we need to increase our scholarship awards? Let's look at all the people who were admitted already who have not deposited, and we haven't heard from them yet, and see what we need to do to get them to come. Maybe they're just waiting. Maybe they're waiting to hear from some other place, so they don't want to commit to us yet, because the deposit, once they put it down, it's gone, right? And so some students will put deposits down at, multiple schools. But the first deposit deadline is around the time where I think candidates are in a good position to ask for scholarship reevaluation, and for candidates who are on the wait list to become more aggressive and just show that they are interested in a particular school.
Got it. I want to footnote something that you said. So, one thing that you learn as you talk to more admissions officers is that there often isn't a single canonical answer. People are different. They have different opinions. They have different institutional policies, etc. But when it comes to the wait list, I think in general, you have more to gain than to lose. You're already not in the school, right? You haven't been accepted, and you probably won't be. I mean, the majority of people who are waitlisted don't get accepted. Some do, but because most don't, again, you have more to gain than to lose. And therefore, if you're scratching your head saying, oh crap, some people only want one, some people say you can update us more than once, what do I do? I say, in this case, err cautiously, if that's even possible, cautiously err on the side of more contact. I think that you should get in touch every month, unless somewhere on their website they tell you not to. Because I just think, the upside is very large and the downside is relatively small.
I think you are correct. I think that every candidate should be very mindful about respecting the process and respecting whatever member of the admissions committee or admissions office they have contact with, and try to use some emotional intelligence to see how far can they go, if that makes sense. A lot of it has to do with, how the candidate comes off. Are they very eager or are they stalker, right? There's a fine line. But I think that it can only help if you just show how enthusiastic you are about wanting to be at that school. I think what you say is correct, that you're not going to help yourself at all if you just sit back and wait quietly.
Yeah. So speaking of which, once you've sent, one or two, what do you say in these later ones? You're sending a follow-up after another month, but what's left to say, Selene?
Well, I would sort of ration your information. And what you want to say and how you want to say it, and maybe be strategic and plan how you want to share information about yourself with the admissions office. And before you get to LOCI number 3, if you get an offer of admission, then hooray.
Right.
Maybe start with the strongest first. Yeah, I mean, don't like show all your cards all at once.
Right. So if you have showed your cards, you can get more cards by visiting if you haven't yet, or by speaking to a student or an alumnus. And if you have, if you've done that too, then I think it's fine just to say, write a very brief note. I am writing one more time to reiterate my interest. I would still be thrilled to go. And again, if this is your first choice, repeat that,
Right.
And if you admitted me, I would attend.
Right. And, the other thing that you could do is, I think admissions offices have multiple people working there to answer questions. And if you're in a situation where there's been movement from other places and you're just kind of wondering what's going on, you can sort of provide a little bit of background information for yourself, and then see if whoever you're speaking with just probes you for a little bit more information. And then you have a conversation. And if they realize that, oh, you have activity going on that we might want to be aware of, then, you can follow up that conversation with an email that has that information about, what's going on with your school list, and they could add that to your file. And that way, it's a little bit more organic how they end up with the information.
Got it. Okay, next question. Can I send a LOCI before I've heard from a school? Or what if they send me one of those emails that says, hi, we're letting you know that your file is still under consideration. We call it a hold tight email. They don't say that you're on the wait list. All they say is, we're getting to you. So in those cases, you're not on the wait list or you haven't heard from them at all. Can you send a LOCI? What do you think, Selene?
I would say send 2 paragraphs.
Yeah, I think it's okay. I think it's okay if you, I would say in mid-February, you can do that.
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, whatever you send them by email, they're going to keep a copy of it on file. And so, if you are on the wait list, and they are pulling your file for consideration in early May, and they see, wow, this person has 6 email correspondence or 6 extra things. Clearly, they're very interested. Let's look at what they have provided to see, what is the nature of their interest. Are they crazy? Or are they just super enthusiastic? And they'll make that evaluation. And so you'll want to be mindful of like the tone that you use when you send these emails. But again, if you're looking at a file that has 1 extra email versus like 5 or 6 extra emails that all say something a little bit different and new and is consistently enthusiastic, I mean, they have more to work with the person who has had more context.
So this is a hard question to answer, but I'm going to let Selene try to answer it. Selene, how likely am I to get off the wait list?
It depends on the school and what that school has chosen to do with its wait list that year.
Are you ever very likely?
It's hard to say. It depends. You may have a school that has decided to waitlist a ton of candidates that year because they think that might be helpful. And that same school the following year may have a very, very small wait list. And if they turn to that wait list, then, if you're 1 out of 25, then that's better odds than if you were, 1 out of 200.
Yeah. I'm going to flip this and answer a question that I didn't actually ask, but that might sound a little more uplifting. It is extraordinarily likely that a school will admit someone from the wait list. So I don't know how likely you are to get admitted off the wait list because, as Selene said, some schools have very, very deep wait lists. Some schools wait list hundreds of people, but they all let people off the wait list. So somebody's getting off the wait list. It is possible. Selene, when will a waitlisted candidate hear back from the school?
I would say most likely they will start hearing, most likely, and this is a very general statement, after the first seat deposit.
Mm-hmm. Do people ever hear later in the summer?
Yes.
So I have heard stories of people getting off the wait list very late, like in July or August.
I've heard people get off the wait list on orientation day. Okay.
So.
And the way that works is that, you have someone who paid 2 seat deposits and then didn't show up, and they committed to going to 2 different schools, and they went to one orientation and they're like, and they decide to go to the other school. And then that first school is left with a hole in their 1L class. So they have to go to the wait list and hope that somebody else is willing to come so late.
Right. That's that nightmare scenario.
Very good. But yes, you could get off the wait list anytime up until orientation.
Okay, now say you're visiting. What do you do, Selene? Is it appropriate to email the admissions office?
You absolutely should email the admissions office and let them know that you're interested in coming to visit. Each school has different visiting procedures.
Right. Let's do a little reminder here.
Indoor policies, and other schools are a vault, and you can't talk to anybody. You can show yourself around. So it depends. You should let them know absolutely that you're coming. If you have a chance, you should say, I want to talk to an admissions counselor. If you have a chance, you should go sit in on a class. Ask them if there are any students that you can talk to while you're visiting. You can visit before you hear a final decision, before you've been admitted or before you've been waitlisted or before you've heard anything. You can go visit. Or you can go after you've been waitlisted. Which visit is more valuable? It's hard to say. If you go before the admissions committee has finished reviewing your file initially, you might make a great impression, in which case they'll make a note. If you've already submitted your application but they haven't made a final decision, they'll make a note and say, oh, so-and-so came to visit. They made a very good impression. Or you could come and make not such a good impression, and they'll put that in your file as well, and you run the risk of like tainting that review. So there's that. But if you've been waitlisted and then you go and you make a very strong impression and you treat it like it's a job interview, then that could really help your, that could benefit your file.
How do you make a strong impression?
You make a strong impression by showing up, and you're professional and you're polite and you ask good questions.
Right. I would say come prepared with some questions.
Mm-hmm.
Do some research on the school even before you visit. You'll get more out of it anyway.
Right. And come prepared to sort of sell yourself. One of the things that law schools do with new law students, 1L students, is to teach them about professionalism and networking right off the bat at orientation, because as soon as you arrive, you are networking with your classmates, with faculty, with administrators, with all the professionals who come to the school for the conferences and symposia that you should attend. And so how do you present yourself? Because you never know what a conversation will lead to. They'll ask you, what is your 30-second, your 1 minute, your 2-minute elevator pitch? Like, tell me about you. Who are you? Why do I need to know who you are? So, I think when you go visit the law school, no matter what stage of the application process you're at, you should think about, what is your quote unquote elevator pitch? If you had, a minute, 2 minutes to just let someone know who you are as a law school candidate, and how much potential do you have, you should think about that before you go. So it's not just asking questions of the admissions counselor about the program, but you are essentially selling yourself.
Okay, so that covers that. And by the way, we have another lesson that you can take a look at here. It's called What to Do After You Get Waitlisted. It's written in an FAQ style. Some of this information is there, some of it isn't, but you should take a look. Okay, let's move on to the Q&A. So if you have a question, Selene and I are here. We are happy to answer them. And we're gonna call on people who raise their hand before we go to the Q&A box, because we like to hear your voices. So I'm just gonna start by calling on Vanessa. Hey, Vanessa, you can unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
I am well, and you?
Good, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you. So I got waitlisted, and I'm interested in, I actually sent this through the Q&A, but my personal statement and resume don't directly address a connection to a specific clinical program for the school I got waitlisted in. And I'm wondering how I can express that interest and if it's a good idea.
I think it's a great idea. And I think that if there is a clinical program you're interested in, you should say so in your letter of continuing interest. Have you already communicated with the school?
No, I haven't. I received their decision last week. Yes, sorry.
Did they give you instructions about, whether it's okay to send a letter of continuing interest or what to do?
Yes. They said send us any updates, and a letter of continued interest if you have one.
Yeah. Okay. So it's time to write one. It's time to explain why you're interested in the school and what is it about that clinic that appeals to you. Selene, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. If you have a specific clinic or a specific program that you are interested in, that's the perfect thing to put in a LOCI. I think schools, admissions committees really like that specificity. And they like knowing that, you know, that this school is going to help you achieve a specific goal. And so if you can highlight a clinic or a journal or a program or a professor, that's all really great to put in.
Okay, great. Thank you. But does it matter if it's not, that interest is not specifically reflected on my personal statement or resume?
I think it's okay as long as you don't suddenly try to paint yourself as a completely different person. You know,
Okay.
I think it would raise some eyebrows if you said, I have had a lifelong interest in eliminating the death penalty or whatever. I've had a lifelong interest in, legal aid for indigent people who can't otherwise afford it. And there's nothing like that on your document. But if you just say, this clinic, legal aid, or this clinic.
I mean, the clinic is a tech startup clinic, and I have legal and marketing experience. And I would like to connect my work experience with my interest in IP and information law. So that's how I would connect that my interest in that program.
Sounds fine to me. Selene, does anything seem wrong with that to you?
No, I think that sounds great.
Okay. Go for it.
Great. Thank you so much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to call on Wenshi Liu.
Hi.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. Thanks for coming. What's your question?
So my question is actually, should I write a letter of continued interest if I'm being deferred from early decision?
Oh, good question. Selene, what do you think?
So they haven't made a final decision yet. They're just bumping you from ED to the regular pool?
Yes.
I would, honestly, I would send an email confirming that you've received this notification and that you appreciate them, reviewing your application. But I would save like a real LOCI for later if you need it.
Okay, got it.
That's my opinion. Like if you have, you have a limited number of times where you can sort of share new information. And I'm not sure I would use it here. What do you think, David?
I agree. I would just treat this as if you had applied to RD in the first place.
Okay, got it.
So I think what Selene said is fine. I think it's very, low risk and possibly, rewarding if you just reply to their email saying like, thanks so much for reviewing my application. I appreciate your time and I'm still interested. That's fine. I don't think you're not using up your currency if you do that, but yeah, I totally agree. I would wait, the normal time. And since you've heard from them recently or did they put you into RD, back in December?
On January 15th.
Yeah, so since you've heard from them on January 15th, I actually don't think I would send a LOCI in mid-Feb. I think I would wait a little bit longer, maybe until like March.
Okay.
Or just around the deposit deadline.
So is there like anything else I can do? I already done the school visiting and I attending their like law school classes and send like additional recommendation letter. I don't know, is there like anything else I can do to bump up my chance? Sounds like you've
done all the things. Selene, is there something she hasn't done?
So you've already visited the school?
Yes.
Okay, so you've already visited the school. And you've already talked to any students who are there?
Yes, I am actually from the undergrad there, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I would just send an email, a short email back, saying that, you know, you are still very interested in, you know, thank you for reviewing the application. You're still very interested in attending, you hope to have an opportunity to attend this law school. And then I would just kind of hang out for a little bit and
Okay.
wait a couple weeks.
Okay, got it.
I hope it works out.
Yeah, and I also have a question that's kind of related to this, but it's kind of about my LSAT. So I've got like a 163 on my LSAT, and I don't know if I should write like a LSAT amendment for that, because I did have a history of not performing well on standardized tests, and I do have like a decent college GPA, but I don't know if I should write that. Will that like help me, or will that like hurt me?
You should definitely not write that.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. Sorry. I know you want to leave no stone unturned, but don't turn that one.
Okay, got it. Well, thank you so much for helping.
You're welcome. Good luck.
Thanks.
Okay, Krishna. Oh, I have to promote you to panelist, it says, to allow you to talk. So, Krishna, our new panelist, how's it going? You can unmute yourself and speak. Are you there? Okay. I'm going to let Krishna try to figure out her microphone and call on Dalton in the meanwhile. Dalton, how's it going? You can unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can, yeah, loud and clear.
Awesome. Hey, so mine is more or less just kind of a question regarding additional information. You guys covered briefly already when you're speaking to admissions officers and speaking with potential professors. I have several meetings coming up, school visits at UMKC and KU this upcoming weekend. And I'm going to have the opportunity to speak with professors at both of those universities. And I was curious, other than obviously the elevator speech and, you know, my intention of wanting to go to that school, if you had anything specifically for the professor as opposed to the admissions officer that would be beneficial for me to get my name, you know, not just at the administration area, but also with the professors.
Selene, do you have any advice for this?
Do you know the name of the professor that you're going to be meeting with?
I have it written down. I could look it up for you very quickly if you're needing that.
You should look up information on that professor.
Okay.
And what is his or her specialty?
Mm-hmm.
Have they written any legal scholarship? Have they written any articles? Have they been interviewed for articles or on TV? You know, what is their specialty? And then sort of bone up on that area of law a little bit so you can ask a couple interesting questions.
Okay.
I think that, are you meeting with that professor because that professor has made him or herself available to students to answer questions, or did you specifically seek out a meeting with that professor?
A little bit of both. The professor offered themselves up to all of the students, and I asked if I would be able to basically meet with them after that meeting or at a separate time, maybe during their office hours, just to speak one-on-one with them.
Right. So that's great. So I would say, so the professors are probably going to be meeting a lot of students.
Right.
So you have a chance to make a good impression. And that professor, and you haven't received a final decision yet, or you have?
No, I have not.
You have not. Okay. So, you know, if you make a good impression, the professor may or may not remember you because they will be speaking with many, many students. But if you make a bad impression, they will definitely remember that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll check that one off. Make sure not to make a bad impression.
And say like, I met a very odd student, and you know. So
well, fortunately, I don't have a history of doing that, so I'm
good. So yeah, so I would do some research into that professor.
Okay.
And his or her background, and then also go to that professor's office with, you know, some questions maybe about the programming that they might be involved in, whether they're, I don't know if they're like a contracts professor or Civ Pro professor, or, you know, if you have any interest in like litigation or, you know, transactional law, like sort of ask questions about the law around their area of expertise.
Okay.
And yeah, just you want to be at that school. What is it about that school that interests you? That sort of thing. Just you know, be professional, be polite, ask questions about them. You know, their professional expertise, and listen when they talk. And
okay. I have actually been a teacher for the past 3 years. Do you think that would be something, if it aligns somewhat with their profession, I mean, that I would have as a talking point to, as you said earlier, you know, what do I have to offer the university as a whole? And the lady that just spoke a moment ago, and you know, her level of expertise in those areas, are those things that would be a good talking point with the professor or the admin?
I think... You teach what, or you have taught what?
I have been a music teacher.
A music teacher for what age students?
Both high school and university.
Oh, okay. So you've dealt with older students.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that you could definitely bring that up. And you know, there's that shared experience of, you know, being in a classroom. You know, the Socratic method is all about pulling, you know, the professor pulling the thought process from the student, you know, getting them to sort of go where the professor wants them to go. And I can imagine that it's similar to trying to get, you know, students to like produce the music the way that you want them to. So yeah, I think that would be an interesting talking point. Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay. Looks like Krishna might have gotten this figured out. Hey, Krishna.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good.
So I had a question about why a specific school essay, or more so paragraph. So I'm looking at health law programs, and a few schools that do have that program, they haven't necessarily asked for why that school. And so I was wondering if it's important to do that for schools where I am interested in their program. And the reason why I'm either a little bit more hesitant is because my personal statement, for the most part, really put emphasis on the health law part. So I don't want to send another paragraph or two explaining the same thing, or not the same thing, but showing my interest. And I don't want them to look at it and think that I'm basically repeating myself or trying to like hone in the idea of it. So just wanted some advice.
Have you already applied?
I'm going to be sending out my applications like this end of this week.
Oh, okay. So are you asking if you should write a letter of continuing interest?
No, sorry, no.
Are you asking?
Yeah, just like a why, like
why
I would want to go to a specific school, and if
and
it's
they
due to
and they don't. And you're saying they don't offer Y-X essays, right?
Like they didn't ask for one, correct? But
right,
because
okay.
I am interested in a program that they have that's also well known, is it necessary to? Not more than necessary. Like, will it help? If I've already...
I think I would just put it in your personal statement. I would just add a school specific paragraph to the end. You know,
okay.
You talk about the fact that you're interested in health law, and then you say, and you know, that's why your school would be the perfect place for me to get my legal education. I admire this program, and I am sure that it will let me hit the ground running when I graduate. and achieve, my goal of whatever.
Okay. That's what I was thinking, but I wasn't sure if it would seem like I'm just reiterating things, and I don't want to do it if it's going to go against me.
No, I think it's great to show them that, you have carefully selected what schools you're applying to, and that they are good at your specialty. I think that makes you a much more compelling candidate.
Okay, perfect. Then thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Good luck. I hope you get in.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, Akia. You can unmute yourself. I think you have to, let's see.
Hello?
Hi, how's it going?
I'm good. So I have 2 questions. I just took my LSAT. I took my LSAT in November.
Okay.
I didn't like my score, so I took it over again in January. So the first question I have is, if I took my LSAT in January because of a low score, should I wait until the scores are released to continue to applying to my school list, or should I just go ahead and send in my applications?
That is a good question. I think that if you are worried about if your first score is, you took the LSAT once before, is that right?
Yeah, I really didn't like my score. Like, it was very low.
Yeah. I don't know. This is tough. So on the one hand, let's just talk it out. On the one hand, if you apply now, I don't think it's all that likely that you'll get rejected before your next score comes out.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, that is the risk, right? If they reject you before they even see your next score, you're going to be very unhappy. And like, how much do you actually gain by applying? When does the score come out? February 15th or something?
Yeah, it comes out on February 15th. I mean, I submitted my application for Northeastern already, and they're going to hold off on the application process until they receive the other score. But I'm just uncertain whether or not other schools are like that.
I don't know. I think you could split the difference and wait 7 days to apply. But I also think it's unlikely that something bad would happen if you applied right now. Selene, what do you think?
So you kept the November score, is that right?
Right.
So that's there. And do you think that you might sort of tweak your school list based on what the second score might be?
So I was able to tweak my school list last week before the test, with my tutor. So I went through the list and I tweaked it based off of my potential LSAT scores after taking practice tests. So I did that. But yeah.
I think Selene means you might have to add safety schools.
I did. Yeah, I did.
Okay.
So I have safety match and I have reach school. I have
schools that are safe even if you don't improve your score. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Because I think if there was a big difference between the 2 scores, then you might be eligible to apply to a different level of school, right?
Right.
And so you kind of you want to have a school list that will enable you to attend somewhere that you'd be happy with. That said, I kind of agree with David. Like, at this point, I don't think waiting 7 days to release your applications is going to make that much of a difference. If only that you can be sure that you know what your second score is going to be, and then you're submitting to places with a sure sense of like, okay, this is definitely a target, this is definitely a safety, this is definitely a reach. Like, I feel like you would know that better.
Okay.
Of course, you can always add schools after you get the score as well.
Yeah.
So I think the only actual risk is getting rejected before the second score comes out. And like I said, I think the chances of that happening are pretty low, but it doesn't mean they're zero.
Right. So my second question is, how do you email admissions counselors to ask them for fee waivers?
I would call.
Okay.
I would call because someone is going to answer the phone. And when they're on the phone, you say, how do I request a fee waiver? And they'll either give you the coupon code over the phone, or they'll say, send an email here. And then you'll know exactly where to send your request and how.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Good luck.
Thanks.
Good luck, Kia. Okay, I'm going to take this question from an anonymous attendee, and then I'm going to tell you how to get that at once. I've had a pretty successful music career, and I've worked with different Grammy-winning and nominated artists on my own personal productions. I've done some minor legal work, but when weighed against my other career accomplishments, they sound minuscule. Do you think my application essay should weigh more heavily on the music, or should I really be focusing more on the smaller yet relevant law-related work I've done? I think that is a trick question, because clearly the answer is both. I think you want to talk about your music career. You want to tell us what about that music career prompted you to transition to law. Was it, an IP issue? Was it, legal wrangling about who owned, a song or something like that? Just tell us what happened, why you're applying. And then at the end, mention that you've done some legal work and that has really helped confirm your hunch that this would be the right career move for you. It's just icing on the cake. It bolsters your claim that you want to switch, and it shows that you have already done some work, so you're not just closing your eyes and jumping off a cliff. So I hope that works. Good luck. Okay. Guys, I started tweeting. Follow us at 7 Sage Consult. I'll give timely tips and make some announcements and link to some lessons that are relevant. Okay. If you are looking for one-on-one help as you craft your letters of continuing interest, we offer an edit once. That is a one-off edit, or we offer more extensive products, unlimited editing, admissions comprehensive consulting. These assume that you've already purchased an unlimited edit, but you'll see when you go there. And finally, how do you get that sweet, sweet edit giveaway? Well, I want you to post a takeaway or a tip from this webinar in our discussion forum, 7sage.com. Just click on the discussion forum. You can either start a new thread and just mention me so that I know it's for, I'll consider it for the edit giveaway. Or you can comment in the post about this webinar. You can link to a lesson. You can just say, repeat a piece of advice that you found helpful. You can give someone else advice based on what you learned. Just react and pass the knowledge forward. Okay, so we'll go back to our regularly scheduled office hours next week. We are trying to reschedule with Julian, so I'll keep you updated. And in the meanwhile, good luck. I know it's a really stressful time. Probably some of you are waiting to hear a decision and you're just in purgatory. You just wish someone would put you out of your misery. I hope you can distract yourself or do something productive like work on your letters of continuing interest. And good luck. I believe in you guys. So thanks for coming. We are around on the forum.